Mordechai was a Jew, proud like me and you. He lived in Shushan long ago. And when Herman came to town and said you must bow down, old Morty stood his ground and just said no.
Esther was a queen,
the finest you've ever seen.
She lived in Shushan long ago.
Long ago.
When she learned of Haman's plan, she had to take a stand and save the Jewish people from the scourge.
Esther and Herman were celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary with a quiet candlelit dinner at home. After a sumptuous dessert of chocolate cake and a little brandy, Herman turned to Esther and said, "Honey, there's something I've been wondering about for a long time, and I think this might be the perfect occasion to bring it up." Esther replied, "Of course, dear. You know I've always been completely honest with you, and I agree that this would be a good time to clear the air about any lingering concerns we might have." Herman said, "Thank you, I'm very grateful. You know that I've always been totally faithful to you. I've never even looked at another woman. I just wanted to check that it's been the same way for you." Esther said, "Yes, dear, I feel exactly the same way. And I've been completely faithful to you, too, with the exception of 3 trivial occasions that it's hardly worth mentioning." Herman said, "Well, that sounds pretty encouraging, but could you give me a few details to put my mind at ease?" Esther replied, "Certainly, dear. If you remember, shortly after we got married, we wanted to buy a house, but you were still in grad school and not earning any money, so we didn't qualify for a mortgage. I went to see the banker one afternoon, and the next morning I told you that the loan had been approved." Herman said, "Well, that's a little unsettling, but it was so long ago and the house was our dream project. Naturally, I can forgive you for something like that. What was the second time you were unfaithful?" Esther replied, "Well, if you remember, about 35 years ago, you needed brain surgery and our insurance didn't cover it, so I went to see the surgeon one afternoon. The next morning I told you that the hospital had agreed to perform the procedure free of charge as part of a clinical trial." Herman said, "Well, that's more recent, but of course you saved my life and we've been so happy all that time, so I can find it in my heart to forgive you. Can you tell me a little about the third occasion?" Esther replied, "Naturally, dear. If you recall, when we retired and moved out to California 20 years ago, you had a lot of time on your hands and wanted to contribute to the community, so you decided to run for president of our synagogue." Herman said, "Yes, I remember that." Esther said, "Well, what I neglected to mention to you at the time is that I learned you were 73 votes short of being elected."
Till today we tell the tale of how justice did prevail, how Haman's kith and kin all bit the dust. Darkest night turned into day, and it all came out okay. Our motto forevermore, in God we trust.
In God